You may notice from time to time in my videos, I maybe exaggerate a little bit, or I use hyperbole to present a point or a specific information or a recommendation. Maybe I say you should always or you should never. And the reason I do that is because I really want to emphasize the importance of the point that I'm making. It's not the case, and I usually try and preface this in the video, that, when I say always, it's not always, but it should be a majority of the time, 90%, 95%, 99%, or if I say never, that's also the case. I've made videos where I talk about, never shoot wide open. And there's obviously times where I think in that video I even said it's okay to shoot wide open. And I get people in the comments who take me literally and they say, well, I shoot wide open here and with this lens. And yes, obviously there are exceptions, but I'm using that exaggeration to make the point because I think some of these points need to be made for people who are maybe newer, or they don't do as much research as they should, or they just take things for granted. And so when I do that and I use that extreme language, it's not even that extreme, but hopefully you understand what I'm saying. It's, understand that if you're being intentional and what you're doing has a reason or purpose to why you're doing it, then you're probably fine. If you intentionally choose to shoot wide open for a particular reason because you have absolutely no light and you need as much light as possible to get as clean of an image as possible, I understand that. But if you're just the kind of person who just, I always shoot wide open because it gives me shallow depth of field, well, then you're not thinking about things like sharpness, resolution, just the quality of the image. You're using just a go-to tactic instead of thinking through why you're choosing to do that. I've talked about other videos where I've said you should never pan, or stop panning because it's the laziest camera move. It's the most basic camera move. And people are like, oh yeah, well, Wes Anderson uses pans all the time, and I do pans, and when I do them, I'm revealing things, and those are all intentional. They're motivated. There's a reason why you're doing it. And so obviously there are exceptions to the rule. But it's very rare that I have someone who totally disagrees with the point. They just disagree with the point in being an extreme 100% of the time. And hopefully I communicate that in the videos, that I don't literally mean 100% of the time. I just want people to understand that it has to be intentional. It has to be motivated. There has to be a reason for why you're doing what you're doing, with everything, with what camera you choose, with what lights you set up, where you put them, what kind of filters you use, your audio, your mic, the placement of, are you going to use a boom mic? Are you going to use a lav mic? Are you going to use no mic? Like, what are you choosing to do, and why are you doing that way? And thinking through those things and actually making real decisions rather than just going with it's what I've always done. I think that's how you fall into patterns of bad habit. And then you may end up making a decision, even though you're just kind of on autopilot, that ends up hurting the quality of what you're doing. So I think there's a lot of people out there who do this. They think through it. They intentionally choose to do things. But I think there's a good chunk of people who just kind of do what someone told them. Like I make videos about this all the time, talking about shutter angle and what shutter angle means as it relates to shutter speed. And a lot of people are just told, oh, you shoot 1/50 or you shoot 1/48 because that's cinematic. And they don't understand the reason why they're doing that. And so then they switch to a higher frame rate and they don't know to change their shutter speed because they're not following shutter angle and understanding what that means and being intentional with their decisions. So it's really important not to just follow my advice. If I say, oh, this is what you should do, these are the best settings, oh, here's the picture profile I use. This is also very common. People want to know what's the best picture profile, and people say, well, use this one, it gives you the best results. Well, that's not true. Sometimes it's really important and it's valuable to shoot log, and other times it's not. You want to use a different profile that's got a more baked in look, and there's different reasons for why you might want to choose that. And I've made videos talking about that difference too. So the more you understand, the more you know, the more you can make those intentional decisions and ultimately get the best result in the end.